gentlemen, your president, Mr. Phil Dewhurst, John Glen, Martin and Carol.
Well, John, don't have a lot of clear. John, I think the Russians are coming over there. Get him, keeping the crescendo.
Start at 100 and somebody's going to give me 100 right now. Sophia is 100. 110? 120. 130 at the back there. 130 going once. 130 going twice. 140. 140 going once. 160. 160. 160 going once. 160 going twice. Sold.
Thank you.
I'm very honoured that you're here, and so is everybody else. And we'd just like to show a bit, well, a lifetime of achievements, really. So, if this works, let's go.
Marvellous. I helped open the Bond exhibition in Solden and got quite emotional. You know, it was like watching the last 45 years of my life. It's like these display cases and you press a button and it lights up. It might be a gadget, a wristwatch or something that you wore. And the very first one I pressed was a ski stick that I made when I was 17.
Bond. James Bond. James Bond.
Now, before I bring the maestro up, I would like to speak to a very special gentleman, Mr. John Glen, and he has a few words to say. So, you were the first Lifetime Achievement Award winner from the British James Bond Club.
Thank you for that.
Oh, the honour was ours, certainly. And now, we move to Chris Corbould. Before we bring you up, maybe you could say a few words.
Yeah, well, Chris, it's a very well-deserved award. I mean, your contribution, not only to the Bonds, but to Star Wars and lots of other films. I believe you're an Oscar winner, and I think that you've done a fantastic job, and you really deserve this award. I mentioned to your wife Lynn, who without her you probably wouldn't be. She wouldn't have fed you or anything. But no, you're a great team, and the proof of the pudding is on the screen, and those films will live on for a long, long time. I don't know what's going to happen to the Bond films of the future. I think their future is a little uncertain at the moment, in the hands of the Amazon. Who knows what's going to happen? I suppose they'll parcel it up and dish it out in a different form. I don't know, but I'm sure that it will live on, the Bond series in particular. All I would like to say is that many years working with you, and how enjoyable it was. We had a few amusing incidents, to say the least, a few scary moments. I remember with your brother, one of the first things when I was directing my first film, it's very important to keep the schedule on a Bond movie. And I remember coming up to your brother and saying, how long will it take you to put in these 20 squibs when Roger Moore is running through this particular thing, so that as he goes along, the bullet hits round his ankles all the way as he runs along. Roger couldn't run very well anyway, but this might have increased his speed a bit. But your brother told me he thought it would be 2 hours. Oh, I said, I can't afford to spend 2 hours doing that. How much would 10 bullet hits cost? 1 hour. I said, I'll take 1 hour. So you have to do this bargain, you know. It's like everything, you know. You have a certain amount of time on the schedule to do things.
I'd have done 20 in 10 minutes, John.
But one great thing about the Bond films, certainly about my Bond films, working with you, is we all had a fantastically good time. And people used to say to me, you know, all the pressure and the schedule and pressure on you to produce a good film. I can honestly say that I never felt any pressure, not mainly because I had such a wonderful crew working for me, and you were a key member of that crew, and I thank you for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Corbould, as our first award winner, would you like to pass it on to our current recipient?
First of all, thank you for this award. I'm very touched and very honoured to be asked here today. I don't take accolades well, as you can probably. But I've been blessed with many years, you know, working with Bond. Barbara and I started on Spy Love Me. Lady Caroline. And since then, I've gone on to do 15. I've supervised 9, and I have to say, without, you know, Cubby first and Barbara and Michael second. You know, Barbara and Michael have given me the encouragement, the confidence and the resources to be able to live out my dreams, you know, to put on screen what I've been dreaming about. So I'll be forever indebted to them, but, you know, but also to the whole Bond team, my special effects crew, who, you know, I didn't do this on my own. I know it looks like I did. But there were many people involved in achieving what you saw on the screen there. But also the whole Bond crew, you know, from stuntmen to electricians to props, everybody, it's a one big collaboration between everybody, and everybody pitches in, which is what is a great thing. It's unique amongst filming. To have that collaboration. I didn't realise I've destroyed so much actually.
Very well.
There's a few things I still like to destroy, but maybe I can carry that on. I mean, a couple of years ago I stopped doing special effects because I wanted to move on to writing and directing, so hopefully in the next couple of years you'll be able to see the next part of my career. But I've had a great life. I've met some wonderful people. I've been to some incredible places on the earth. Lynn and myself have travelled to many parts of the world. We had a great time. But thank you ever so much for inviting me.
Love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We hope you've had a good day. Hope you're well fed, watered, and are looking forward to today's Q&A. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I mean, legend of cinema, bringing the magic of cinema to our screens. Now, people think of special effects. Obviously, in the show reel we played, there's a lot of explosions, there's a lot of crashes, action, but special effects extends much further than that, doesn't it? It's kind of atmospheric, it's everything you can think of.
Yeah, it covers a broad aspect of the whole filmmaking process, you know, from atmospherics, wind, rain, snow, fog, getting involved in vehicles, you know, like the lovely DB5s and the Vantage. We get involved in a lot of them. You know, the DB5, we had eight real ones and 2 on No Time to Die, so we had a lot of fun with those. You know, we put 2 driving pods on the roof of 2 of them and gadgets in 2 others, and the other 4 were just playthings that the stunts drove around in and had fun with. But yeah, cars, gadgets, obviously. Explosions are a necessary evil. I wouldn't say that they're my favourite part of. I mean, they look great on screen, but there's a lot of night's sleep lost. Every one of those where you dream of all the implications. There's a lot of testing that goes on. You know, the big explosion in Morocco that we got the Guinness Book of Records for was weeks of testing just to get the right concoctions. So although they look great on screen, they're not a particular favourite of mine. They're a necessary evil. But then, you know, you move on. We work with the directors closely. The lovely John Glen now I had such a great relationship with. You know, you have to liaise with them, come up with ideas for sequences, you know, try and improve sequences that have been written. It's a great job. I've loved every minute of it. So, yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, in a lot of ways, there's kind of a reunion here because you're here, as you say, John Glen is here. And first Bond film you worked on, Spy Love Me, and we saw in the sequence there, one of the first Bond props, Bond special effects that you worked on, fresh into the Bond family, the ski pole that Sir Roger uses in that sequence. What can you tell us? What's your memories about that, how you got involved and how it came about?
I was working for a special effects company in Pinewood Studios, and I was put with a brilliant engineer, a guy called Ken Morris, and he was mentoring me. He was showing me how to work a lathe, how to learn how to weld, how to technical draw. And one of the jobs that came in was this ski stick. So we made 2. Okay. Now I can't definitely say that's the one I made, but it's definitely one of the 2.
I think it was yours.
Yeah, I'm going to take credit for that because it makes it for a better story. But yeah, he made every single component, and as his apprentice, I made the exact components. So we made 2 of them. His was one, and mine was the other. So yeah, it was my first real entry into the James Bond world. So fond memories of that.
I mean, that's amazing. That you come into your first Bond film, you're working on such an iconic sequence as well that was followed up with that amazing ski jump that took place. Moving on from there, what's, you know, people talk about the Bond films as being a family, the crew, and you've mentioned as well, it's not just you that pulls all these amazing things together. What's it like working on the Bond film with the directors, the electricians, you know, the gaffers, all of the different teams coming together to bring together the amazing sequences that we know and love?
Well, as I said before, it's one big collaboration, and take one of them cogs away and you haven't got a film. You know, everybody is reliant on every other department. You know, you've got the director and the producers obviously heading it, and all of us little soldiers underneath feeding ideas through. You know, and sometimes I feel sorry for the directors because they're bombarded with you know, ideas. You know, whether it be from costume, from me, from the stunt department, it's this plethora of ideas coming through, and they have to sort of put their foot down and say, yeah, I like that one is absolute rubbish, that one I like. But ultimately, the director makes a decision which way forward you go. So yeah, it is a massive collaboration, but you need the producers, you know, over the years. You need good producers to allow you to relax and do your job. You know, what became later on in life where you're continually fighting over budgets tended to distract you from what your real job was, and it became a bit too much. But there are still certain directors out there. You know, I did 4 films with Christopher Nolan, and he was a bit of a strange character because he was the writer, the director and the producer. So he wore 3 hats. So when he had his writing hat on, we come up with this wonderful script, and you sit down with him and talk through all the ideas and come up with a fantastic script, spectacular, action-packed. And then he put his producer's head on, and he would say, well, okay, well, what sort of planet did you think you were on when you thought you could spend that much money on all this? So you think, well, okay, wait a minute, we've just been through all this, and this is what you want. So anyhow, you crunch the numbers, and you bring the numbers down till he was happy. Get that bit out of the way, and then you'd get on to the next bit, was the filming where he puts his director's cap on. He wants twice as much more as he had when he was writing it for half the money. So it's a bit of a strange thing, but you know, I have a lot of respect for Christopher Nolan. He's a incredibly talented guy.
Yeah, and he's dedicated to in-camera effects, and you know, that's something that is constantly under pressure with CG, AI now as well. How important is it, do you think, for practical special effects to be continued in the industry going forwards wherever possible?
Well, obviously I'm biased.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
we
not biased.
all are, because we're all fans of real effects.
Well, I think you notice the difference. You know, I do struggle with some of the CGI-heavy films. I get lost in the spectacle of it. You know, it's an open palette where the sky's the limit, and sometimes they just go into overload. You know, I was extremely proud to have been nominated for No Time to Die for an Oscar, and that was the first time in 44 years. And I think that for me was a great feeling that finally we'd got Bond back on the award-winning map. And I mean, being totally honest about it, most of the Bonds should have been nominated for an Oscar, but because they're guilty of this franchise situation where they think that, you know, they've done 15 of them before, they can't win anything. We always lost out, but you know, certainly the special effects and a lot of the cinematography, the set design should have won many more awards. So,
I don't think there's anyone here that will disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
And hear. Just to come back to Bond, you start on, obviously, Spy Who Loved Me. Did you have any idea at that time, when you worked on that picture, that your relationship with the Bond franchise would go on for a further 15 films?
No, not a clue. No, I thought that was just a short job. I mean, being perfectly honest, it became obsessive once I'd started it. When I first got the job, it was like I was only 20 quid a week. I could afford my own boots and jeans more than anything. But you know, once I got into the mechanics of engineering, I became obsessed with engineering. You know, throughout my days working on Superman, you know, that was the first big engineering-based film where they were building these great big hydraulic rigs and, you know, Superman flying through the air. You know, that's when I really became obsessed with it. But did I ever think I was going to be sitting in a chair after 15 Bonds, not in your wildest dreams, no.
And are there any kind of standout moments, or several moments? I imagine in every film there's a standout moment for you, and lifetime of memories on every film that you work on. But are there any standout moments and or recollections that you have that, whenever you think back, you immediately spring to mind?
You'd still be here till midnight if I mentioned even half of them.
That's fine.
No, there's certain parts of my life. I think GoldenEye was a very pivotal one because there'd been like a 7-year layoff, because there was litigation going on in the courts. And I think when GoldenEye came up, it was very much a mission to make sure that, or see if Bond was still relevant. Because during that time there'd been great films like True Lies had come out. There'd been some incredible films. So when GoldenEye came up, it was a real mission for all of us to make sure we could keep James Bond alive. I think I have fond memories of that because, forgive me if you've heard this story before, but I'm going to tell it again in here. The tank chase in GoldenEye was originally a motorbike chase, and I got called up to with Barbara and Michael and Martin Campbell to discuss it, and they said, "Chris, we're not happy with the motorbike chase. How can we make it better?" So I said, "Well, get rid of it. There's been 5 motorcycle chases in the last 5 years. Why would you want to do another motorcycle chase?" Bear in mind, I was a rookie supervisor at that stage. Although I've worked on before, this is my first time of stating my case. So they said, "Well, okay, if you're so clever, what would you do?" I said, "Well, he starts the whole sequence in a military park. Why doesn't he steal a tank?" And they all sort of looked at each other and said, "What a bloody good idea." And that whole chase came out of that one conversation. It was bizarre. And weirdly enough, once the ideas started coming out about what you could do with the tank, if we'd have shot every single part of the sequence that people were coming up with, we'd still be shooting it now. We had it going under the river at one stage. We had it, all sorts of things. But it was, everybody said, well, a car's much faster than the tank. But we worked on the principle that, yeah, it's faster, but the tank can take shortcuts like through buildings. And that's how I've always found that there needs to be a methodology behind what you're doing. So there has to be some element of truth in it. That's why I never quite got the invisible car and Die Another Day, but that's another story.
Well, we have one parked over there.
I can't see it.
It's easy to miss. Speaking of that tank chase, I mean, as you say, that kind of was spawned from an idea, a suggestion you made. Are there any moments, either in that chase, because you mentioned a couple there, or alluded to some, or moments in other films where you've had a particular special effect, practical effect that either you've wanted to do for real, that you have done for real, but for whatever reason it hasn't made it to the final film, whether it was ended up on the cutting room floor, it just wasn't practical. There's physics that just can't be broken. Was there anything that you've wanted to do but no? Nice and simple.
I've done everything I wanted to do. I became a bit like a spoilt child with Barbara and Michael in the end, because I never forget the tube train in Skyfall coming through the ceiling. I was out and finishing off Dark Knight Rises in LA, funny enough, and I got a call from Sam Mendes. And he said, "Chris, I've got this great underground foot chase through London, but I need one jaw-dropping moment." So anyhow, the cogs started turning, and I literally went to sleep and woke up. Thought, "Well, tube train coming to the scene, that'd be a good idea." So radioed back and said, "Look, I've got this idea. They're in there. There's a big standoff, and then all of a sudden, the explosion in the scene, the tube train comes in, and everybody loved it. And that's what we did. But I think Barbara at one stage said, "Well, Chris, can't we do this as a miniature?" I said, "Not a chance, not a chance. We're doing this for real." Which is what we did, and probably not a lot of you people know this, but I was actually the driver in that train. If you freeze it, there's one particular moment, and if you blink, you'll miss it. But they digitally put me in as the train driver.
On-screen star as well. That was a particular question, actually, and you've answered it in a way. Saphira was about that whole tube scene, and the explosion as well at the end of Skyfall is when Bond's family home is destroyed. Something absolutely incredible. That was a mix of practical, real full size and a miniature helicopter as well, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, most of it, funny enough, that was my first entry into the world of second unit directing. I came up with the idea for the sequence because, they weren't happy with the sequence. So Sam said, go away and previs it. So I went away and previs it. He said, right, now go and shoot it. So, which is what we did. That was my entry and spurned my love for directing. I just loved every minute of it. But the most of it was full size. We blew up the house full size. A lot of the helicopter, we had a big Merlin attack helicopter. That was all full size. The only shot we did miniature, was a helicopter going into the to the building, and for some reason the military weren't really all that keen on destroying one of them full size ones. So we had to make
They're a little bit touchy about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially with austerity and all of that at the time.
No fun.
No. Well, I mean, we'll wrap up shortly, but like speaking of the future, you mentioned directing there, your first, second unit directing experience, which then sparked your interest in moving into a direction. With everything you've accomplished within special effects, do you still get that spark of excitement when you're approaching a new project, whether that's writing something now or potentially directing?
Yeah, I'm the eternal optimist. I wrote a script based on two guys that backpacked across Colombia and got kidnapped by rebels. There's not a single explosion in it, which is great. I wrote the script for it. I'm attached to 3 others. It's a waiting game. It's not a world that I'm familiar with. I know how to blow things up and do car chases. Trying to get money to finance a film is a whole different world, and I'm learning fast, but not fast enough. So, one day maybe, you can keep your fingers crossed. In the meantime, I'm having a great time with Lynn, the children, the grandchildren. The special effects I had a great time doing, but it was all consuming. You could be away for months on end sometimes. You could be working 16-hour days for 6-7 days a week, and I did it for 40 years plus. So I kind of figured I want a bit of my own time back, but also start a new career. It's something I love doing. It's I find it a real joy to be on the second unit that I did. I love to be on the set with a bunch of guys that were all pushing for the same goal. But most of all, I like to have fun. I like to come in with a smile on their face and go home with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
I've worked with too many directors and producers who made people's life misery. So if I can get any of these off the ground, we'll make a bloody good film, and people will have fun on it as well.
Well, I know everyone here will be queuing up at the ticket office. Final question from me. If you could give a piece of advice...
No, I don't know who the next James Bond is, all right?
Right, okay. I promised you I wasn't going to ask you that. I'm not going to ask you that, but it's good to know. If you could give a piece of advice to anyone who's considering a career in film, whether that's practical effects or another department, as you say, there's challenges now with funding. Streaming services seem to be taking over everything. But is there any advice you'd give to someone looking to go into the creative field?
I would say explore your passion. Be keen about it once you find that passion is. But above all, be courteous and respectful to everybody you come across. Because it's stood me in good stead over the years, and there are lots of people that you meet right down there, and all of a sudden you're working for them, and not be respectful of them for that reason. You should be respectful to anybody for no reason at all. But I think that's there's notorious over the years. There's been lots of egos in the industry, and I'd like to see some of that disappear. Sometimes it goes hand in hand with being creative, and I kind of get that, but not totally.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Corbould OBE, Bond and Beyond.